Okie doke. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back, Alexandrian Codex. We are up to the year 1966. Go ahead and update that stream title. Delightful, beautiful, you'll love to see it. And let's unpause. The war in Indonesia lasted less than a year, pushing through civil rights, voting reforms right now. Voting Rights Act in particular. Just gonna push through this all the way, and then we'll pivot to education and poverty, but for the time being, racial equality, that's the first thing we gotta do. Beacon in the darkness, or once more into the breach. Let's do a beacon in the darkness. I like the name of it more. Our country should be a beacon in light. Beacon of light for more people that want freedom from boots of fascism and Nazism. They rejected individuals who were often end up enslaved or killed. Oh, the rejected individuals who often end up enslaved or killed must be saved. Should loosen restrictions with our current immigration system, make it easier for immigrants to enter the country and work hard to become American citizens. Should be careful in how we implement it to make sure the process doesn't become chaotic and possibly harm country. Harm our or the country. Opening the floodgates might help so many people, but it might allow Nazi spies to enter easily. On the other hand, if we remain too restrictive, we alienate more people still. Let's make sure we pick the right solution. Irkutsk unifies the Russian Far East. The Soviet remnant, headed by Gingrich Yogida, was one of the few recognized states in post-war Russia, but its real affairs were unknown to the world. Many assumed that it was engulfed by the Russian anarchy, like the rest of the Russian Far East. However, the recent developments caused, it appears, the headlines for the first time from the 1950s. After holding on to his domain of Irkutsk for a long time, Yogida managed to destroy other contenders to Russian rule in the region, once again asserting his dominance in the outskirts of the former Soviet Union. With his close enemies eliminated, Chairman Yogida now seeks to fully reinforce his claim as a legitimate successor of Bukharin state and expand his power to the western frontiers of Siberia. The apparent rebirth of his Soviet successor state has become a source of alarm for its Siberian neighbors, while the international community looks forward to the future of Russia with great concern. Oh, none of my business. Democratic discomfort. President Lyndon Johnson walked with a small cohort of Secret Service beneath the Great Dome of the Capitol. As the Senate was not currently in session, fewer people than usual stood in the rotunda, but one appeared to be approaching Johnson rather quickly. "Governor Ross Barnett," Johnson said, recognizing the man. "What a pleasant surprise. Just going to meet with Rockefeller. Care to join me?" Barnett did not appear to be in an amiable mood. "No, Mr. President," he said curtly. "Came here to say I was disappointed with your civil rights bill." "You voted for them, though, yes?" "Yes, but they went too far beyond the scope of what we agreed to. You played too fast and too loose with Democrats' loyalty. Won't be so likely to give it up next time." Johnson smiled, taking a step forward, placing his hand upon Barnett's shoulder. "Congressman, I only did what I thought was morally right, what was best for the country. We're all one party, aren't we? Now let me tell you something," he said, his smile turning sour. "If you ever threaten the integrity of the Republican Democratic Party again, run your career into the ground. Is that understood?" Barnett nutted. Nutted begrudgingly. Nodded begrudgingly. "Excellent," said Johnson. "As long as we're all in agreement, then." Liberal democracy getting a vote? How about that social democracy, though? That's the real... that's the real good stuff. Ooh. 3 civilian factories. Alright, we're on to the 7 infrastructure states. D.E. Lightful. How you doing on, use one more of those. Use more military factories. How you doing, bud? Indiana. My home state-ish. I mean, I wasn't born in Indiana, but I was raised there for the most part. And let me tell you, I don't really miss it. You have 12 civilian factories. Hot damn. Delaware? Okay, this is a 7. Connecticut, Massachusetts. Yeah, okay. New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island can be brought up to speed. Connecticut. 8 is half. Rhode Island and Mass. 16. Yep, that'll be half. All right, great. You're all brought up to speed. Ah, shit, SoCal. 9. 9 is, yep, that's exactly right. There's lots of more military factories. Is it necessary? I don't know, probably not, but it's kind of nice. By kind of nice, I mean it's damn nice just to be able to be pumping out armies like this. Gaining the black vote. Republican Democrats have accomplished one of the most monumental feats in social American history with the passing of the Voting Rights Act. Not only are African Americans unimpeded on their way to vote, they're now actively flocking to the polls, greatly increasing voter turnout. Surge of African American votes is spreading throughout the South, not only in major cities of Birmingham, Atlanta, or Houston, but also in smaller cities of Little Rock, Jacksonville, Biloxi. Population was even gaining ground in the poor rural areas in central Alabama and the outskirts of the huge Georgia cities. But Lyndon B. Johnson was hard at work today. It's inevitable that with proper representation, African Americans would go to the polls in huge numbers, show support for the party they're choosing. If Johnson could garner the African American vote, it's possible the Republican Democrats could become the dominant party in the South, displacing the MPP menace. The vote would make up for all the Dixiecrats that quickly deserted the party once the act was passed. Time was of the essence for President Johnson as he began to dial up activists, church leaders, professors all throughout the Deep South, starting with Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, and Georgia. Blood on the asphalt. Oh god, there's a lot here. Alright. In at least a half dozen cities across the nation, most notably Birmingham, New York, and Los Angeles, African American communities are in chaos. Their inhabitants taking to the streets to protest the passing of Lyndon Johnson's landmark civil rights bill. The bill, which saw a fierce vote in the Senate between progressives, far-right, and Republicans, is widely been criticized by the former for its lack of deep protections for African Americans and their disadvantaged communities. It appears now that many— what? African Americans share that sentiment as tens of thousands begin demonstrating early this morning. Did I fail something here? Or did— this seems weird, but okay. The protesters using improvised weapons to fight back, as well as makeshift shields from hubcaps to trash can covers and block fire hoses and police attempted to disperse them with. At the end of the day, hundreds of shops, cars, and public buildings have been vandalized. We didn't even make our way through this. Did it time out or something? I have questions. Okay, whatever. Fighting appears to be worse in Birmingham, where it appears the local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan involved themselves with demonstrations became violent. Klansmen formed a temporary alliance with police chief in charge of the operation, soon came down on the protesters with clubs and other weapons. Now, with most of the Birmingham riot concluded, at least 19 people, 12 of them African Americans, are dead. The South ablaze. Over the last few days, in a dramatic but unsurprising series of events, the South and its far-right NPP population have descended into what can kindly be called utter chaos. Dozens of protests have been organized all across the former Confederacy in states of Atlanta, Montgomery, New Orleans, Savannah. All of this anger can be attributed to two men in particular, Senator Strom Thurmond and Alabama Governor George Wallace. Two individuals have riled up the white population against President Lyndon Johnson following recent announcement that the Great Society reforms would include comprehensive legal rights legislation. Deep South have long been followers of the far-right NPP and to a lesser extent more conservative elements of the Democrats. As such, they've always had a reputation for acts of defiance against civil rights legislation, but nothing quite to this extent. As of right now, it's unknown why Strom Thurmond and George Wallace have promoted such extreme protests. The only time will tell if it has any true impact on the president's decisions. The president himself has declared that a great society includes equality for all individuals, regardless of race, color, or creed, has dismissed the protest as nothing more than the far right wishing it had true influence. It would appear the stubborn Republican president will hold on to his ground against Southern rage, but Congress may not. yeah, I feel like one of those events misfired. One of those was correct. The other, you're not passing comprehensive reform. Am I not? Is that not what I'm doing right now? It seems like I am, but it might have been a timed event. I won't be too critical, though I will express confusion. That's alright. That's alright. Doesn't have to be perfect. Hey, it's Senate election season again. Oh, great. Alright, let's fight for the MPP. Because that's, you know, long run, who I'd really prefer to be in office. The center, or the left MPP, just to be clear. Damage control? Yeah, let's improve our Navy for the time being. Decisions are available. Where do we want to campaign? Wow, a lot of these are a toss-up. Jesus Christ. Okay. Where we got the most toss-ups? Upper South. No, I don't want to mess with that. Deep South, lots of toss-ups. New England. Maine has a far-right incumbent? Oh, that's horrible. Okay, Great Lakes, Illinois is up. Michigan, oh my god. No, let's do the Upper South. Well, I'm worried about boosting votes in the South because Democrats and Republicans are both easier to get to vote the way I want them to than the far right are. So I'd rather just not campaign in the South at all, because I know those won't come out right. But New England, yeah, meh. Upper South, Great Lakes. Yeah, let's push the Great Lakes. And, you know, we'll double back on that. Hold up. Great Society. Civil rights is very weak. I'm working on it, dude. I'm pushing it. It's just taking a long time. Impact on environment, weak. Excuse you? Those who include Lyndon Baines Johnson sat in the Oval Office. A rare pleasure, a pure, unabashed silence consuming the room. Paper after paper, meeting after meeting. The day had been a long one. The sun was just now caressing the western horizon. Suddenly, door creaked open, and through it entered Vice President Edmund Muskie. 2 proposals for a new immigration bill had finally finished. Democrat written, Muskie said, placing one down in front of Johnson. Republican written, he said, placing down the other. Johnson exchanged no words with Muskie. He simply sat, scanning his eyes through the Democrat-written immigration bill. Very long, very thorough, and very restrictive. Immigration quotas would be increased, but upheld. Travel to the United States from Germany and Japan would be heavily restricted and would only allow slightly lessen requirements on applying for a visa. In short, it was extremely conservative, as he had expected it to be. Technically, it wasn't totally written by Democrats. Republicans had a hand in writing it as well, but the Dems always did have a tendency to drown out others. Next, Johnson flipped through the Republican proposal. At this point, just a rough draft. Still subject to significant future revision, but the groundwork and basic contents were there. Johnson found it to be much more amiable to his plans than the previous one. If implemented, the bill would remove immigration quotas entirely, open up travel to and from Germany, Japan, and other foreign powers, and generally lessen restrictions on entering the United States, which had been very strict since the end of the Second World War. Which one are we gonna go with? Asked Edmund Muskie. We go ahead with the Democrat proposal, we'll probably get some votes with it, so it's more assured. Proposal, on the other hand, is more in line with our policies and campaign promises. Be harder pushed through Congress, Democrats will consider a slap to the face. Slap them in the face! Nationalists will disapprove. Good, don't need them. This is going to require both. To those worthy. Even though we may be a beacon of hope of freedom, we cannot just completely open borders to every human being on the planet. Instead, we must consider certain amounts individuals based on a lack of skills that could be problematic to our country's security. All elements of possible moral defect from immigrants must be screened, and possibly excluded if a threat to national security. Yet, if we actually consider excluding certain people based on subjective morality, we'd be doing damage to our own country's potential. The decision must be made with respect to all options. Yeah, that's a little mucka. Yeah, political power. Thank God we don't have the old Kaiserreich system, that's all I'm saying. Hans' tale. Hans stood on the main deck of the SS Columbia, a shipping barge, as a massive ship pulled into New York City. The large vessel, there's no text on this. Okay, that's concerning. Large vessel passed by Ellis Island, a mighty woman with a torch watching over the bay, Lady Liberty. This was everything Hans had ever hoped for, and more. As Germany had fallen to pieces around him, he fled from his university dormitory in Denmark, then to Scotland. For more than a year, he had to bide his time. Okay. Bided his time? You could just use a different form of the word, but that's okay. Struggling to learn English, drifting from job to job, and desperately seeking entry visa to the United States. Hans' wish finally came with Johnson's new immigration bill, which, after decades of hostility, allowed German nationals to enter the United States. Of course, he still had to attain a visa, but no longer was travel to America limited to the rich and powerful in Germany. Now, even poor little Hans could pop into a ship for the new world to start a new life. The barge reeled into port on the side of Manhattan. Walking down the plank to a concrete dock, the Hudson River at his back, the wind in his hair, he had finally arrived. America. Stench of ocean salt and garbage and industrial pollutants dominated the air, but Hans could care less. It was less the smell of refuse, more the taste of liberty. Hey, you! Hans turned around to see a greasy-looking dock worker with jet black hair and distinct accent talking to him. You gonna stand there, or are you gonna help work unloading this boat? Sorry, Hans replied in a stickly accent into English. Just arrived from Sweden. My name is John. Man looked over him with a pensive look. Well, John the Swede, I need more hands on the dock soon. How'd you like a job working for me? Hans looked over the massive hive of humanity called Manhattan. So much was different and new and breathtaking. The Empire State Building, jet planes flying overhead, hustle and bustle of the living, breathing city of New York. He had finally made it. Welcome to America, Hans! Or John. John the Swede. Samara has unified Western Russia. From the haze of rumors and contradictory news and Russian anarchy, a new nation has arisen. Intelligence analysts around the world have confirmed the Russian Liberation Army, or ROA, has managed to defeat all of its rivals for control of land bordering the German Reich. Grown out of a collaborationist militia, the ROA and its general, Vlasov, have crushed their rivals in a brutal campaign. Scarce information places the smuggler General Oktan at the heart of the ROA's turnabout in fortune. The plans of Rostov's heir remain to be seen as the ROA has declared a provisional commissariat for Western Russia. Refugees flying to the new state have decried Oktan and his cronies' corrupt rule. Hate to see it. Alright, moving on to once more into the breach. Business and public facilities within the South will follow our new laws. I don't care how much they cry and scream of federal oppression, they will not prevent blacks and other minorities from being able to access businesses for needed purchases, and public facilities for needed assistance in their daily lives. I will personally send observers, and if necessary, the National Guard, to enforce the law if I have no choice. Time to use the bully pulpit on these states. Solid MPP campaign. I forgot we were even doing an election. The RD campaign crashes and burns. Oh, that's a shame. That's a darn shame. Golly gee willikers. It's just too bad. Too bad. As work continues on the new immigration bill, an important matter has come to the forefront. Skills. Many applicants would surely have backgrounds in medicine, engineering, and science. At the same time, many others would lack such abilities, would instead move into the service and industrial sector, or agricultural sectors. Question is, do we want to establish a strict set criteria for potential immigrants, who likely appease nativists in Congress, make noise about unskilled labor taking American jobs, but at the same time, progressives would prefer a general open and tolerant policy? So what would the system allow? Send us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. It's nice doing this as a Republican Democrat because all the kickback is just strengthening the NPP anyway. Do I want to strengthen the West Coast? I kind of want to push the West Coast to lock down Oregon and potentially help out Alaska. Central East Coast, how's that going? Is there... Oh, East Coast. Yeah. New Jersey... Yeah, let's push the Central East Coast. Concerns among Democrats. Mr. President, this is a disaster and you know it. Lyndon Johnson repressed the urge to sigh over the phone. Usually, when someone like Congressman Sid Herlong kicked up a fuss, he'd invite him over for a chat, then loom over him until the errant soul got the picture. Right now, though, he'd have to sit in the Oval Office and take it. Sid wasn't the only Democrat pissed over the contents of the new immigration bill, but goddamn was he loud. My district already has plenty of illiterate foreigners and infiltrators, so we sure as shit don't need more. And you kowtowed to those center bastards, and you know they'd never vote for either of us. Don't have to tell you this'll hurt the unity of our party, and it's fragile already. Johnson checked his watch. In a few minutes, the Floridian would probably yell himself hoarse. Then it'd be on to the next call from the next angry legislature. It's gonna be a long day. Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia declared war on the Anti-Communist Volunteer Guard. That's you, huh? Oh, that's gonna go well. Enforcement, one way or another. Bo Albright stepped out of his car. Balmy air of another sunny Alabama morning, warming his skin. Walked along the sidewalk to the entrance of a Pride and Joy, Albright Deli and Butcher. Some people might think running a butcher store to be a poor career, but Bo had built up the store with his bare hands. He was exceedingly proud. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and began his work of breaking down a fresh hog that he had received yesterday. Not long after he'd finished splitting the pig into its constituent parts, a man in a suit stepped through the door, flanked by local sheriff James Green. The suited man introduced himself as David Smith, an attorney from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. The federal man was definitely an out-of-towner from his Yankee accent. Mr. Bo Albright, he began, I'm here to inform you your business is in violation of new civil rights mandates. You must remove your whites-only sign. Bo stood there, as if not comprehending the man's words. He looked at Sheriff Green, who shrugged. I built this place with my own two hands, he said. Don't I get a right to choose who I let into my store? Them Negroes is a dirty fuck. If I start letting them in, I'll lose all my good customers. Just shoot him. Just shoot him. We'd be better off without him. You don't start letting them in, said the Yankee. I have the authority to pursue legal action against you, potentially leading to the condemnation of your property. Take down your sign. With that, the Yankee stepped on a heel, left the dumpy little butcher shop. Bo looked at Sheriff Green. Can't let that carpet-sagging son of a bitch do this to me. It's a violation of my rights. No, it isn't, buddy. No, it isn't. You don't have the right to be a discriminative piece of shit. That, the Sheriff Green sighed. Really angry, called the governor's office. He's already given the Yankees in Washington an earful. We'll get through this, don't you worry, though. Doubt the attorney's gonna show up again. I won't tell him if you keep the sign up. Yep. Yep, that's the South, buddy. That's the South. Reshuffle police forces. State and local police forces within the various troublemaking states in the South will make sure federal and newer state laws are enforced. The past enforced ignorance of the law, as well as encouragement of police brutality against its African-American citizens from our local and state police, is outright criminal. It's still criminal today, but it's not criminal because it's protected by law with all kinds of very racist institutional constituent parts, but we won't get into that. The oppression will be dismantled. I will personally send federal investigators to have police departments either change their act themselves, force states to fire mass amounts of disobedient police officers who remain brutal towards African Americans, refuse to enforce the law when it does not suit the racist Southerner. The bully pulpit must be continually used. What's political power? I haven't had political power in a long time. Well, the polls have been updated. Not really relevant to me until I can make a choice. Uninspired MPP campaign, that's a shame. Stubborn Southern businesses. Lyndon Johnson looked over the contents of the manila folder laid out on its desk. It's a report of thousands of businesses across the South who have refused to observe new desegregation rules and that the government had been attempting to enforce over the past few weeks. Flipping through pages of names and dates, places, finally reached the end of the report. Given the vast amount of resistance to civil rights, it seems necessary for far more effective enforcement, more strict punishments for offending entities are in order. Johnson sighed. He knew the South would always push back against any such measures. Any single step he took in any direction would cause a massive amount of public backlash, either in the South or in the rest of the nation. Few men knew just how hard it was being president. Rarely was it more difficult in situations than these. He could do nothing, or do something and be hated. This has gone on long enough. Federal policing is the only way. Republican Democrats have a masterful campaign. Well, fuck. It's not ideal, champ. Not ideal. Congress enacts daylight savings. Seasons bring not only snow melts and browning leaves, but also their own preferences over when the sun rises and sets. Whereas winter prefers a graceful rolling white panoramas with an extra hour of warm sunset light, summer instead bids the star waken hour early, as if to greet the sleeping peoples under its watchful gaze. Romans, Englishmen, Frenchmen, civilizations which have relied on the sun's firmamental flight to keep track of time, were left with no choice but to adjust their hours to 4 different maidens' tastes. Today, the United States shall join their lengthy, hallowed ranks as President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the Uniform Time Act of 1966, which pages decree that from 0200 hours on April's last Sunday to 0200 hours on October's last Sunday, all clocks across America's 5 time zones shall be moved forward by exactly 1 hour. Proponents have argued multitude of benefits. Saving daylight in such a matter will bring, including a notable reduction in home electricity bills. Should they somehow wish, states may opt out of the latest and most unusual amendment to the nation's timekeeping standards, provided that their exemption applies statewide. Arizona. Arizona is actually one of these states. Arizona just has Arizona time. I think it might be the only state left in the union that hasn't adopted daylight savings. Indiana for a long time didn't. I think that's right. I might be wrong. Don't listen to me. Let's go in New England. Yeah, let's push New England. Because there's some NPP seats there I'd like to reinforce. Southern obstinance. Today, President Johnson held a press conference to address major issues at hand with the implementation of civil rights across America. Many have openly claimed that discrimination is still heavily present across the nation, especially amongst police forces. The president, in a heavily anticipated statement, had this to say. It's been a great many weeks since passing of America's most recent civil rights bill. However, it's come to the attention of our administration, many cities across America, segregated areas remain due to extreme police prejudice. African Americans forced into lower class statuses due to strength of the lawmen commanded to protect them. Additionally, there have been claims certain discriminatory, supremacist organizations have infiltrated many municipal police organizations. After so many sources, it's my opinion, an immediate action must be taken to rectify the issue. As such, our administration will be moving to reshuffle suspect police forces, mandate heavier background checks and screening measures for new officers, and break up the bonds between so many law enforcement agencies and third-party elements such as the Ku Klux Klan. Already, the move has drawn criticism from the South, most notably from Alabama's Governor George Wallace, who called the president a tyrant for his infringement upon the states to enforce their own laws. It would appear that many politicians on the far right wing of the National Progressive Party are moving to block any legislature that the Johnson administration can introduce to regulate municipal police. As it stands, it appears the president wishes to see his desires realized. He may have to do it through executive order. What are you talking about? We have like 3 senators who are far right. Let me double check that. 10. No, they're nothing to be worried about. You cannot stop me. The Immigration and National Security Services. This bill would make sure more immigrants are able to enter. But their entry would be based on deserving qualifications, make them potential Americans. Qualifications such as education, needed skills, and so forth will be sought after to make sure they get priority in our new system. Another major provision for this law will give immigrants a clear path to naturalization as well. Finally, racial qualifications are eliminated entirely to allow more fair and just system of entry that represents the moral character of the entire country. To make the immigration system more fair and just for future Americans of the world. Winning over Black America. Now, I know... who is this speaking? Now, I know things haven't been going our way since we were first brought to America centuries ago. Suffered under the lash for years and years, not just in the United States, but throughout the entire continent. It was by the will of Abraham Lincoln and the grace of God our chains were finally broken. Had some successes in American culture, had Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, Rosa Parks. These people worked to put us in the spotlight. My fellow African Americans, though, still live in prejudice. Our words now matter. Our vote finally matters. Our lives finally matter. It's so frustrating how incremental reform is exhausting and makes human lives so dispensable in the eyes of the state. Do you know who made this happen? The Republican Party worked day and night to give us the opportunity. Great President Johnson needs our help more than ever. Worked to give us a proper right to vote. Stopped every oppressive state that tried to lay a hand on us. I say we give back to him, to the Republican Party. If you haven't realized, my friends, we need him too. Accept the President's great society with open arms. After several months of campaigning, Republican Party started to win over some well-known activists of President Johnson's cause. These activists in turn reach out to the multitudes of African Americans in the South, persuading them to use their new vote for the party. While some progressives have been made down south among new Black voters, progress has been made. There's still a long way to go before Republicans can ever become relevant in the region. Wales wants to buy weapons. Well, this is a new one. It seemed that the Welsh government feels insecure militarily about its position. Completely fair feeling in this world, given Wales' dangerous close proximity to Germany and all the safety concerns that come with that. They've approached us with an interesting request. Weapons. Arms and ammunitions are arguably the best, or most important, valuable goods in the current world situation. Wales wants them, we have them, Wales is willing to pay for them. Wales has proven to be no close friend to the Germans, and supporting European democracy may help to further our influence in Europe. However, it must be taken into consideration these weapons could be used in direct opposition to our goals. Not to mention a meddling in European affairs like this is likely to... Yeah, you got it, dog. Sell the weapons. You want guns, you got guns. Your social democrats, love them. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-bum. Ma-ba-bum, bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 ba-bum, bum, ba-ba-bum. Let me take a look at the economy. Been a while. It's been a long while. How's our debt? National debt. What do I have on hand? Liquid reserves. I only have $100 million? Really? Well, there it goes. We'll pay it down. Will it matter? Probably not. Ooh, we're getting close. We are getting fucking close. Polls are updated. The 68. 68 isn't enough to make the transition, is it? Dude, I would be thrilled if it were. 65. Holy shit, it is. Yes. Yes, abso-fucking-lutely yes. Now, I'm sure we have a shortage of a great many things now, don't we? It's not that bad. The APCs, oh my god, I need so many more APCs. Yep, sure do. Okay, anti-air, you know what, you're down to 2, bud. You know what, matter of fact, you're down to 1. I don't need more of you, and I probably will never need more of you. Scout helicopters, you're down to 5. I think we're good on you for in perpetuity. Maybe when I upgrade all of these with scout helicopters, we'll need you. Transports, gonna cut your production in half as well. Hey, everybody, do me a huge favor. Stop training. I need to replace all of this as soon as possible. This is looking grand. I don't need it. So, you know what? Cut it in half. There we go. That's improving. That's improving. This is improving. And tell you what, just go to APC. APCs. There you go. We'll start a whole second line of APCs down here, because God knows I'm going to need it. Alright. National Guard divisions are done. Do I just want to deploy all of these? Yep. Just deploy them immediately. 7 out of... Okay. That's going great. Wonderful. Uninspired MPP campaign? That hurts. That actually hurts. Oh God, I need more rubber. I can't import more rubber. Well, I can. It's just going to be, like, overwhelmingly expensive. So, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to go into construction. We are going to go with synthetic refineries and states with 6 infrastructure. We're going to start plopping down some synthetic refineries, and we're going to prioritize those over everything else. 6 here, 6 here. Now, Alex, you may be thinking, isn't that overkill? You only need, like, 2 of them. I need 2 of them now, but I'm probably going to have to continue upscaling this in the future, and I'd rather not run into this issue again. Like, you know, ever, but specifically anytime soon. So, wait. There we go. Gonna be focusing on that for quite some time. Death of Prince Dem Chugdon Grub. I butchered that. Political military leader in the Mongolian steppe has died with a violent bout of stomach flu, which ailed the old man for several weeks before his passing. Despite being a largely obscure figure outside of East Asia, he's been perhaps one of the most prominent Mongolians to live and die since the reign of the Khans. Through his efforts, Outer Mongolia and Inner Mongolia have been reunited. And a popular insurrection in Mongolia in the early 1960s was beaten back. Some decry him as a Japanese puppet. Others herald him as a champion of Pan-Mongolianism. Whatever your beliefs, he's now dead. His funeral was noticeably empty for the death of a head of state, highest level dignitary from Japan being the ambassador from Nanjing. This death, charismatic Prince Thurgood Slolong has taken power. Oh, God. Alright, you know what? Use the Ghetto Riots. This will give us some political power. It's too late. No, fuck the political power. Yes, in my backyard. Now, I understand the worries about less fortunate people entering your beautiful suburban homes and your wonderful neighborhoods. Maybe you're afraid that they'll give your neighborhood a bad name, that they'll cause trouble, that they could even not fit in and end up excluding you from society. However, that will not be the case. You can get your congressman to support the Free Housing Act, Fair Housing Act, you can be guaranteed the less fortunate will be able to raise to your own level with their hard work and dedication. Those underprivileged people who end up having an easier time moving in will become your friend, and if anything, make your neighborhood stronger. I implore you, as a good and kind American citizen, to help the less fortunate in their struggles for an independent and happy life. Let's say yes to an even stronger backyard. Well, Republican Democrats ran a middling campaign. The shifting winds. Beau Albright stepped out of his car, stretching his legs after the long drive to Legion Field Stadium in Birmingham. His wife stepped out beside him, and they began to walk to the entrance. I'm glad the governor's holding a rally about this whole integration business. They ain't got no business being in my store, no matter how much that damn Yankee attorney tells me I can't stop him. Oh, Beau, says Penelope, you have never been so riled up before. It's a 3-hour drive to Birmingham. Surprised you're still so upset. Anyhow, sure do hope there's seats for us. Filed past the ticket inspector's booth into the stadium, filled with thousands of people. Even down on the field, thousands and thousands of seats filled, surrounded George Wallace's platform in the middle. Beau and Penelope surprisingly found empty seats there, not 50 feet from the governor. They sat and listened to George Wallace talk about segregation for what felt like an hour. Now, says Wallace, who here is a small business owner? Beau stood up in a sea of seated men and women. Wallace called him up to the stage. What's your name, friend? You been to a national progressive rally before? Beau almost seized up in front of thousands who were watching. My name's Beau. Beau Albright. My shop was first let in Negroes by a federal inspector, and I ain't never really cared for politics. Words were cut out by a thunder of applause from the audience. George Wig, I ain't never really cared for politics. It's definitely a dog whistle for, oh, you're a racist piece of shit then. Gotcha. Like, I don't care about politics. So you don't care about other people. Well, okay. Well, fair, you know. You're entitled to be a piece of garbage. His words were cut off by thunderous applause from the audience. George Wallace took the microphone from Beau's hands. Hear that? Average, nonpartisan businessman was forced against his will to integrate. This is what President Johnson wants. Wants to take away our right to choose. Not just the states, but his people. Stepping up his enforcement measures, I say let him. National Progressive Party will stand for what's right. And many times before, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation tomorrow. MPP shifts right? No, come on. Well, not very much. Fuck you. Conservatives are grumbling. Mr. President, Great Society is starting to be put into effect, and good news, overwhelming majority of Americans support our efforts to reform society, make it more fair and equal to those on the bottom of the totem pole, but as our efforts bear fruit in Congress, there are already rumbles of opposition building. Some conservatives of the Democratic wing, as well as those in the far-right MPP, are starting to complain in private. Anonymous op-eds in newspaper all over the nation condemning our efforts. Nothing to be worried about now, most of these people would never voted Great Society anyway. If it wasn't political suicide to support the first acts, they're generally popular with the American people. Few that did vote in these acts did so on grounds of high costs, the encroachment into the state's prerogatives, not necessarily in regard to the ideas themselves. In general, our plans are moving forward, still wide support, so we should be able to continue pushing to make forward America a better and more equal nation. Well, that's all I'm asking for, Jimmy. Is that so much to ask? This is gonna take 1,000 days to be done. All the President's Men blows the lid on the box office. Hollywood took to the political wildfire as a Nixon presidency this past weekend as a critically acclaimed film, All the President's Men, stormed theaters across the United States. Critics from Chicago Sun-Times have regarded the movie as being a brilliant showcasing of the depth of investigative journalism. Its paranoia, self-doubt, and harassment dominate the cases of the heroes of Washington Post. The movie soars to reach a cemented number one spot as the box office as Americans rush to see the political thriller. Director Alan J. Pakula provides the American audience a journey into spheres of journalism, writing, and politics as the film looks into the journeys of renowned reporting duo Katharine Graham and David Habersham as they take the haunting shadows which peer over every move. Together, the duo follows one step after another in the journey to unveil a secretive and dangerous conspiracy involving the White House administration, scaling all the way up to former President Richard Nixon himself, who just 2 years ago resigned from office as President of the United States. Graham and Habersham served as writing leads behind the movie itself, while Graham stated, David and I wanted to deliver a trek through perils that came with Nixon's scandal as we had experienced. Terrifying, backbreaking, and, well, exhilarating. Every time we felt our hearts racing, we wanted the audience to feel that rush just the same. That being said, key figures within the Republican-Democrat Party have come forward in criticism of the movie, with the Republican Democrats stating, "Puts a hole through our work in trying to help the United States." Yeah, I've been live for a minute, yeah. And I streamed for like an hour and a half. Yeah. I started streaming at 2 this morning, working on mod shit for a couple of hours, and I took a break, and then I've been streaming since 5 a.m. Yep, I woke up at like 1:30 in the morning. Why? I don't fucking know. Just did. That's quarantine, baby. Time has no meaning. Time is an illusion. It's just stream time. It's always stream time. Blah, 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 blah. Spokespersons within the National Progressive Party have stated their appreciation for Graham Havisham and Pakula's work. Nevertheless, despite political experts' criticism, American audiences driven in scores to theaters across the country to enjoy the film of the decade. Some have called it, decisions available. I'm gonna campaign and... Dude, my sleep schedule is always fucked. Always fucked. Well, okay, the Deep South, the Upper South, 3 are up for grabs. I don't want them going to the far right, though. So, I'd love for them to go to the center, but I just don't trust that they'd end up there. West Coast. Let's campaign in the West Coast to lock down Oregon. It's like illegal. I will make it legal. The meeting room had a thick, uncomfortable air to it, caused in no small part by the unusually low ceiling and burning cigarettes of the Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach. Smoking Attorney General sat opposite President Lyndon Johnson, with Governor of Mississippi Ross Barnett sitting just a few seats down. Kicking the Klan out of Southern police forces had been more involved affair than previously thought, began Katzenbach. Of course, replied Johnson. That's why we're here. Something's not working, and we need to determine what it is. Recommendation of action is break up police departments at the core, said Katzenbach. Senior and junior officers need to be more separated. Suspect departments should have the full investigations placed onto them. Well, let's not push this too far, says Barnett. Too much pressure, you could be facing a case in the Supreme Court. Current stress you're putting on them, more than enough. Just needs time to sort itself out. Fine then, said Katzenbach. Think we should put additional measures on. Just a bit lighter, perhaps. Discrimination's supposed to be bad in Georgia. Call up Governor Garland Bird, tell him how we want to get his state in line. He won't refuse the president, even if he wants. Has proven difficult in the past. If our plans work in Georgia, we'll apply them to the rest of the South. We can't just stop here. Yep, we are Lyndon Johnson and Lyndon Baines Johnson, and I am hemorrhaging political power, forcing through the Civil Rights Act, but by God, I'm gonna do it. Johnson may bankrupt this nation, but it will be worth it. We won a war in Indonesia in like 3 months that was supposed to drag on for a long time. The rising fear. Over the past several weeks, America has borne witness to a new firestorm of anti-immigration sentiment. Stoked by activists on the far right in the National Progressive Party, protesters have gathered at state capitals and federal buildings across the country. While most protests are small in number, they're plenty noisy. Placards proclaim foreign spies out and hey, LBG traitor to the USA and America for Americans are plastered to the television news screens from San Jose to Bar Harbor. Meanwhile, television and radio ads are discussing everything from Argentine fascists to black South African radicals are hitting the airwaves. While opinion polling shows that most Americans disapprove of this sentiment, it's exceedingly difficult to ignore. Are we not a nation of immigrants? The MPP grows more appealing amongst progressive voters? Alright. Lyndon Bruh Johnson. Fuck, that's good. Russo-Finnish ceasefire signed. Northern war bogged down to a stalemate when the calls for ceasefire were agreed to by both sides. The Army of Provisional Commissariat, Western Russia, successfully overran the most of the Onegin Russian auxiliaries. But the difficult terrain and lack of modern equipment made it difficult to break through in Karelia. too difficult for the Western Russian power. Sitting behind fortifications, lakes, and marshes, the small, yet modern, Finnish army managed to repeat its previous defense successes in the Winter War. It's to be expected that the Finns will cut loose their erstwhile allies in Onega. In exchange, the Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia is expected to recognize Finnish claims in Karelia. This defeat is a setback to the ambition of the West Russians, who see themselves as the embryo of a restored Russian nation. Nevertheless, the High Command in has likely decided to cut its losses and focus on its eastern ambition instead. There are not Argentine fascists. There's only 6% fascists in Argentina. It's like a Lib party down here. The flavor text is wrong. An assault on law and order. Both Democrats and elements of the far right have found themselves openly standing against the Johnson administration after President Johnson himself refused to support additional anti-discrimination measures. What? Supported by... What? Proposed by Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach. These changes come more than a week after protests surrounding comments made by Georgia Governor George Wallace in which he called upon the South to resist tyrannical government. In many cases, protests became violent, taking a long time before calming down or being stopped by National Guard units. Senator Strom Thurmond called a week of protests an assault on law and order. The governor of Mississippi, Ross Barnett, calling it the Days of Rage, a term now popular across much of the nation. Now, even the anti-discrimination measures proposed by the Johnson administration are being ignored in the South. Ku Klux Klan seems to be openly working with local authorities, and hate crimes have skyrocketed. Overall, the past few weeks have proven disastrous for the president and the Republican Party. Johnson will likely see more emboldened resistance from the South in the future. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em all. Stand in my way, I'll do to you what I did to South Africa. I'll do to you what I did to Indonesia. Civil Rights Act of 1866 allowed all citizens rent, hold, sell, and buy property, but gave the federal government no means to enforce this principle. African American leaders are adamant that without equitable housing, there will never be equality of opportunity. We're counting on overwhelming support from black voters to survive the wave of backlash to our civil rights agenda. We need to pass a bill that meets their standards. Meanwhile, the right MPP has been most successful in mobilizing opposition with language of housing discrimination. White communities fear losing subtle means of resisting integration. Even conservative Republicans who nominally support civil rights are making noises about freedoms of association and commerce in response to our fears. Our policy teams have come up with several options. We stand strong on racial inequity. I'm not backing down on any of these. If I weren't playing a Republican Democrat, I'd be like, party loyalty, but I don't give a shit about this party. If more people leave the party, good. A roof over one's head. We cannot allow any Americans who are minorities to suffer housing discrimination any longer. African Americans, Mexicans, and Asians all suffer from constant discrimination. Despite hard working and moving up, many of them live in slums, in misery, or in the streets, where they end up causing problems for the rest of us. Wow, yeah, that's why homelessness is a problem, because they cause problems for us, not because of human rights. Okay, whatever. Even though many of our white American voters want nothing to do with them, letting hard people suffer in squalor will make our country continue to look bad. We will possibly not fully secure a vote for our party from these new voters in the next election. I implore my fellow Republicans and fellow Democrats to support Fair and Housing Act. The Fair and Housing Act, not only for our coalition's sake, but for the sake of America. Oh my god, it's senseless. It's ceaseless. Tough on racism. There's been a rise in the number of civil rights cases that have been working their way through the Department of Justice lately, with prosecutors, FBI agents, and all investigating a variety of racist incidents throughout the South, bringing police officers, Klansmen, white supremacist leaders, and others to trial for violence, intimidation, and flouting civil rights laws. While gears of justice move slowly, not all the cases will be decided in the government's favor. There's growing outcry throughout the South that the feds are overstepping their authority, trying to criminalize personal opinions and thoughts, trampling the First Amendment, and dismantling states' rights. One particular case where a hotel owner in Georgia was arrested for allowing a white mob to break into a black man's room, tie him up, smash his belongings, threaten to lynch him, has become the focal point of this opposition, with Yakity's faction of the MPP demanding the FBI's case, arguing it was overstepping their authority when the state courts could have handled it, and undoubtedly would have let the white hotel owner and mob walk free. Yet Yaki has gained support throughout the South for standing up to the man in his efforts to make the black equal. Oh no, the Yakis gain more prominence? Hate that. Oh, but they're still like 1%. Yeah, fuck you, Yakis. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick break, because I need tea if I'm to keep reading the spam it's sending me, so give me a sec. Okie doke, okie doke. Well, this is gonna suck for YouTube. Sorry about that. So the tea will start screaming in a few minutes, and I will go get it. But for now, let's unpause. The tea. The boiling water will scream. The tea itself will not be screaming. I hope. It'll be some weird-ass tea. Democratic backlash. Much of the strongest opposition to the proposed Fair Housing Act is coming from Democrats. Prominent Louisiana radio host went on to diatribe against the cursed Mono Party yesterday, excoriating Democrats for throwing in with the Republican Party that clearly no longer shares their values. Republicans are being characterized as puppets of organized Negro agitators, trying to bring crime and lawlessness to white communities. It's unknown what electoral consequences this new messaging will have, which thrown Republican Democrats and MPP into flux. Yeah. Yep, suburbia's hell. Republican Democrats run a respectable campaign, but the MPP's has been stellar. It's 1966. Hey, yeah, it's 66. We can get some better guns. What was I do? Oh, well, I assigned that tech, or that research a while ago. How are we doing on this production? Polls have been updated. That's great. That's great. That's wonderful. Just wonderful. I don't care. Okay, this is at production, so you're good. I'm not cutting those, though I'm tempted to. Ooh, it's screaming. It do be screaming, though. Alright, got my chamomile. Now I can let my throat just fucking die. Let's move this up. It's a higher priority than all these planes. Still Slow down because I don't have rubber. How's that coming along? We're about halfway done. Okay, well, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Progressive backlash. Fair Housing Act is seized in national spotlight. Not in a good way. Sweeping protections and robust enforcement mechanisms put writing on the wall for many white communities. Town halls from Massachusetts to California are full of angry white homeowners fretting about how its passage will affect property values, schools, and crime. The NAACP has launched listening tours in most states to encourage and advise first black families moving into previously discouraged areas. This endeavor has been covered breathlessly in the press, portrayed somewhat between a violent invasion and a conspiracy. There are even some NPP centrist politicians have publicly criticized the bill and are widespread calls to weaken it. In Defense of Liberty, or LBJ-72B. In Defense of Liberty, I guess. This one doesn't show what it does, so I guess I'll go with that one. I don't even know what I just chose. I need a campaign. Yes, I do. We are leading in the West Coast. God, the Deep South is a mess. East Coast. I'm gonna push the East Coast. Yep, I'm absolutely pushing the Central East Coast because there is a toss-up there. The most basic need. In many years of service as a legislator of a great state of Texas, my belief fortified in the ability of our country to legislate through the issues of the greatest importance severity. The issue of equal rights for American Negroes is such an issue. It's an issue that has been festering since the founding of our sanctified nation. Even if we defeat every enemy, should we double our wealth and be unequal to this issue, then we will have failed as a people and as a nation. The failure of any of our Negro brothers to rise to the station and prosperity merited by their strength and character and wealth of enterprise is a betrayal to the American dream. I want to speak about a specific crisis of inequity before us today. A lack of fair access to housing is an inequity that perpetuates all other racial injustices. Negro fathers are denied access to employment, their children access to school, all through the myriad sinister confines imposed on the accruement of property. Across the country, actors of hatred conspire to limit the bounds of freedom afforded to their fellow Americans. It's time for local action to break free the black homeowner has passed. We need federal action to break the back of malign interests. Name one time when the South wasn't a fucking mess. Prior to colonization. To my opponents here and those who would seek to avoid action by national government in their own communities, the answer is simple. Attack the racial bias of lenders, sellers, and renters with all your might. Make a world where the passage of the Fair Housing Act is a distant and antique necessity. Until that world is a reality, the United States will be there to protect the rights and opportunities of all of its citizens, black or white. Use the Ghetto Riots. Look at the chaos. The looting, destruction, and violence has burned so many of our great cities. That looting and destruction comes from African American ghettos that remained impoverished, in destitution, and utter misery thanks to our current party's inability to solve this crisis. We must do something to soothe their anger and rage of the black community, as well as prevent more violence between fellow Americans of all colors. The riots showcase the current failures of our government. As we remain in stagnation with the bill, this inaction must end, or else our black citizens will be put in jeopardy. Muddy waters. Backlash towards a housing act has reached a fever pitch. An outspoken supporter of the bill, an MPP senator of the Illinois State House, was brutally beaten last night. His masked assailants left racist graffiti in their tire iron at the scene of the crime. The attack has crystallized support for the bill generally among many of that wing, but liberal support of the bill is still lacking. A group of senior Republican congressmen came to President Johnson today and warned that pushing through the Housing Act would do irreparable damage to the RD coalition. They argue that driving white voters towards the MPPR would en masse would do more hurt civil rights in the long term than taking a loss on this issue. Johnson argues it's no better than ceding civil rights to the MPP center, but his colleagues prefer not to throw the already unstable party alignments into chaos. Both houses of Congress gearing up for a melee, it's time for the administration to make a final decision on whether to put forward the Housing Act or not. Extremism is no vice. god, our political power is just just crashing. Good god, what have I done? I've saved the soul of this nation, that's what I've done. Romania sides with Germany. After staging a political revolution, the now friendly Romanian government is happily given rights to the oil fields to the Reich as repayment for their assistance in supporting the legitimate government of Romania. Needless to say, Italian diplomats are not thrilled with the outcome. Their many efforts to woo Romania into their sphere made fruitless. Oh boy. I only need 7,000 more. That's it. That's it. Just need for 7,000 more armor personnel carriers. That's totally an easy goal. Republican Democrats run a respectable campaign, a break in the storm. After many weeks of sporadic protesting around the inability of the Johnson administration to enforce its desegregation rules upon the southern police departments, many cities in the South are beginning to calm down. No protests and injuries between clashes between protesters and the KKK or police. It appears violence is coming to an end. Governor Maddox of Georgia and Governor Wallace of Alabama are also standing down, allowing the old federal rules to be enforced once more. A period of violence, often called the Days of Rage, led to weeks of violence between protesters and pro-police elements all across the South. The pro-police elements often consist of the police themselves, as well as members of the white supremacist Ku Klux Klan. I don't understand, you just wrote police twice. All told, over 60 Americans died during the fighting, with more than 100,000 injured or hospitalized. It appears the Johnson administration, with violence concluded, is moving once again to enforce its desegregation rules upon the South. After many weeks of chaotic, exhausting work, Southern municipal police departments don't seem to be in a position to resist. Okay, 75 political power. It's something, alright? We're gonna claw our way out of this. Solid MPP campaign, you'll love to see it. Use the Ghetto Riots, that helps. The Fair Housing Act, we've come so far on civil rights. Yet, we need to finish the job. Fair Housing Act, should we manage to push it through, will be this administration's last great legislative achievement in the civil rights debate. By prohibiting any and all discrimination in renting and selling housing, we will see a profound change in the character of our towns and cities. The scale of change is the Fair Housing Act would bring in its status as the last great civil rights bill by this administration and made it the center of a political firestorm. Segregationists see the housing issue as the last great bulwark against enforced desegregation and will oppose the bill as strongly as they can. Many within our own party encourage compromise and prevent extensive fallout with conservative voters. Meanwhile, African Americans look to the White House to see if the president is as good as his word. So what's this gonna do? Voters in the North and South Steel Belt will approve of this. Voters in the South, Rockies, and West will disapprove. Some of the less dedicated Republican parties will switch over to Democrats. Republican-Democrat Party divide grows further. Temporary support from other senators is cleared. Okay. Saifuddin abdicates. Tengku Abdul Rahman becomes prime minister. Where are we talking about here? No idea. To the dismay of many who saw the Sultan as reformer of the Federation, Sultan has abdicated the federal monarchy, citing a desire to remain closer to the subjects of his birthright. While the Majlis convenes, Dewan Negara is also appointed new prime minister of Chunan. Oh, it is down here. Good. Sionan. Tengku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Haj. Many expect him to be another out-of-touch aristocratic leader of the Federation. His track record in the federal parliament has brought many to shame and has effectively used his weight as an aristocrat to push for reform and progressive legislation throughout the Federation. As always, only time will tell if Tengku is an effective carrier of the Sultan's will. His first test is already laid out in front of him, with ticking time bomb of public dissent. I'm sure it's fine. Can I get this yet? Nope. Please? Please? Oh, you know what I can and should be doing is improving our APCs, because all of these texts have not been picked up. Yeah. I did pivot over to APC, so should probably make some good use of that, huh? Okay, we can go Great Lakes, we can go West Coast. West Coast, MPP has a lead, and both great. Great Lakes, MPP has a strong lead and a toss-up. All right, we're pushing the Great Lakes. But Alex, this is just for senators. Senators inform the presidential vote. We're voting on party popularity right now more than we are the success or of any individuals. Just more armor. Nagasaki Accord signed, bringing peace to Vietnam. After years of abortive uphill negotiations between the Communist Party of Vietnam and the Empire of Vietnam, two parties finally came to an agreement regarding a peace in the region. The Nagasaki Accord is hailed by signatories as a symbol of a new age for Vietnam, establishing a path for future of the country in the co-prosperity sphere. In the settlement, it's been agreed that Emperor Bo Dai is to abdicate following the public elections, and the status of Vietnam as a Japanese partner is to be elevated in the near future. Thousands have celebrated in Vietnam's major cities celebrate the end of political conflict across the nation. But various members of the imperial court, as well as the Prime Minister Ngo Dinh Diem, have vanished from public sphere following their harsh disapproval of the accords. What remains, however, is a tense peace between the Vietnamese government and the Viet Minh, now forced to share the young and fragile republic. Polls are updated. All right. Cool. How are we doing now? We got 6.6k left to go. We're trucking along, all right? It's gonna take a while. Mafia money, Stonewall Gin. Like all organized crime establishments, the anonymous room in Queens had the smell of cash and cigarettes, and way too many secrets whispered into waiting drywall. The men within paced about and spoke at length on subjects one would expect. Wandering here, fiefdom issue there, latest quota from the bosses. Everybody knew enough to make sure they didn't leave the wrong hands hanging in the air for the wrong ears. Shibboleths sprouted in the smoky mist. The Genovese branch of the Mafia hadn't clung to their yellowed halls of power in the East Coast by playing stupid. Certainly weren't going to start now. Struggle, at present, wasn't one of power, but of its old friend, money. New York joints had been busted up for a long while. For a time, patrons had settled for what they could get. Depression years, chaos of the 50s had a way of killing any uptown pretensions. And now that America was recovering, the old middle-class patrons were beginning to filter out. Ones even the Cosa Nostra deemed distasteful were moving in to take their place. Pimps were losing control of the situation on home turf. Something had to be done. Anthony, Joe, Mark, not their real names, fiddled with a map of South Avenue on the table. A new joint, free of the putrid smell of the old town, would jazz up revenues and act as a movement point for money, guns, information. Old trades, new venue, easy money. Who would frequent it? Wasn't exactly Broadway. Anthony smiled. Next words would change history. Even if he didn't know it yet. We open it to the queers. Stonewall, huh? No, I can't. Doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't ring a bell. All right, cool. Well, we're done with that part of the tree. Oh my god, we have to do this whole fucking thing. I regret pushing through any reforms regarding anything else. This is gonna take our entire goddamn presidency. All right, what's next, Alex? War on poverty? Welfare of the people? Healthcare for a nation? Listen, dude, teach them well. We're gonna do education next. Why education? I don't fucking know. It's over here. Teach them well. On its most basic level, education, that's a process. We've already read this text. Nothing bad will ever happen there, right? I mean... hopefully. I shudder to think that this is a law and they're talking about Stonewall. We'll get there. Moderates are content. Mr. President, we've gotten more of the Great Society passed through Congress, and the wide-ranging majorities in support that those proposals and ideas have been receiving in polls for the past few months. In general, the people are with us. Congress, including the RDs and much of the MPP, are still supportive. We can expect bipartisan support needed to get more through. That said, some of the more conservative and moderate members of the Republican Democrats are talking to staffers on Capitol Hill, feeling like we've already done a good job. Maybe we should start winding down the Great Society. One senator even said, we've done enough for this decade, should let the next generation get a chance to do some stuff. No one is breaking away, refusing to go along. We'll most likely start seeing more resistance from Democrats, and even some of the moderate Republicans, who believe the Great Society has gone far enough. Any further Great Society acts could start arousing concerns of everything they like to worry about. Tax hikes, debt, socialism, states' rights, so we should take this into consideration moving forward. Fuck 'em. Socialism today, tomorrow, and forever, my dude. They ran a masterful campaign, and we ran an uninspired one. That's rough. Emperor Bao Dai advocates. Communist Party swept into power. The results were worse than he could have expected. There was little he could have done to sway the Vietnamese people to maintain him as emperor, but the fireworks shot up through the streets of Hanoi, Saigon, and Haiphong. No reason to continue listening to the results on the radio. 79% in favor of the Communist Party, and as such, his own abdication. Nearly 4 out of 5 Vietnamese men. Sure, the soldiers were afraid as a Ho Chi Minh's new government, as he was. But most of the politicians wanted to hold their rank. Prime Minister Dien vanished in the night, coward likely running with as much gold, generals, and hires up. Those who left stayed inside the royal complex, listening to Ho Chi Minh's speech from every television inside, as did every Vietnamese who was lucky enough to have one. Beautiful. Beautiful. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Alright, yep, we're just working on armor now. National Protection Army's really making ground in China. This is astounding. The heating pot. As the death count steadily increases, more and more honest Americans mourn their loved ones. Political temperature is rising at an alarming speed. After dozens of reports from the FBI documenting larger protests breaking out throughout the country, they're no longer needed to warn the government about rising discontent. The president himself found out today when he looked outside the White House window. Right before the gates of the presidential residence stood grim and silent dozens of men and women of all ages. You're complaining about the war that's over, huh? Some held photo, yep, okay, you think the game's like, you're still at war, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Okay, yeah, this flavor doesn't really fit us. There's a rise in extremism. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm doing fine. West Coast? NPP should be winning. Southwest. We could save New Mexico. Nope, Great Lakes. Great Lakes, can I push Great Lakes? I can't. East Coast, how you doing? East Coast needs a push. Oh, these overseas wars are so bad. No, they're not, dude. We won one in like 3 months. We pulled out. Like, don't worry about it. Head Start programs. In order to foster an education system where none are left behind, a new regime of agencies will need to be created. Proposed Head Start programs and the purview of the Department of Health and Human Services will play a pivotal role in the creation of such a system. Programs aim to ease the transition from preschool to elementary school, improve learning abilities, and create a home environment that encourages, rather than discourages, school participation for students if possible. Head Start will entail the employment of teachers, opening of facilities throughout the country to aid low-income families. We'll get boosts to improve our poverty rate and academic base. Love it. We literally destroyed Nazis with less than 5,000 volunteers. Seriously. How many men are in an airborne division? Manpower. What's a manpower requirement here? Alright, so, I threw thousands at them. I don't know what our losses were, frankly, because we didn't fight that war as an active participant, so I couldn't see her casualties, but I guarantee it's relatively low. The South Africa war was a little convoluted, but the Indonesia one went fast. Went damn fast. Not saying helicopters are the best, but helicopters are the best? That's rough, buddy. Our stability's not the best. War support, not the best. But you know, we're working on it. Republican Democrats run a respectable campaign. We run a solid one. Senate elections are over. Let's take a look at what happened. The Republican Party lost 6 seats. The Democrats gained 2. The far right lost 2. And the MPP Center gained 6. So, plus or minus, we're pretty much in the same situation. Things got a little bit... no, we're more liberal across the board. Democrats are problematic, but MPP Center are what we're pushing for right now. So, good shit. Good shit. We're up to 38. Yeah, the Center MPP are the predominant party. Democrats are then secondary, and Republicans are tertiary, and far right are barely worth noting. Okay, let's assess material needs. Implementation of new education programs will doubtless be a costly undertaking. One thing that's central to the initiative will be ensuring that schools are correctly stocked. To determine what's needed and where, an examination of schools' individual schools is necessary. When this census can be concluded, the process of apportioning textbooks and other classroom supply funds to state and local governments can begin so that every school has the tools for modern, efficient education. Even better, infantry anti-air. You love to see it. Just all APC text now. Yep, this is where we're at. Establishing Head Start programs. To achieve his dream of eradicating poverty, President Johnson has established the Head Start program. This initiative, under the auspices of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, is just the first of what is hoped to be many by the Johnson administration. It's an effort to improve the plight of young children in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, particularly those of minority groups. Head Start offers summer programs and evaluations to ensure that children from low-income families succeed in adjusting to elementary education and are sufficiently developed, cognitively speaking, in order to succeed in school. Opposition from conservative circles are somewhat muted, partially from the fact that popular support for Head Start is fairly high. More vocal opposition to the encroachment on states' prerogatives of education will only mount should the administration choose to move that way. Expenses rise, conservatives are mad. Oh, they can die mad. Die as they live. How's this construction going? God, we're almost done with some of this rubber. Actually, I think we finished a lot of it already, and it's just... we need a lot of fucking rubber. Is the way this is looking. Yeah, that's definitely what's happening here. Oh, wait. Part of it is we're the fucking USA, so we're exporting 27 units of rubber. Even though I want to be holding on to it, our import-export laws make it so that most of it can be exported. Yeah, fuck. Gotta hate that. So we're not retaining everything we have. Nope, not at all. Well, if that's the case, yep, that's the case. All right, I'm gonna have to pop down more synthetic refineries in states with 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10. All right, my 5 out of 10s are gonna get synthetic refineries. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 5 out of 5, 5, okay. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, that's correct. Yep. West Virginia. Mountain Mama. How about Maine? Yep, Maine's a 5. And more rubber. Death of a Supreme Court Justice. Ooh. Well, it's a shame. Real shame. Who am I going to replace him with? Ooh, take a wild guess here. Take a wild fucking guess. Nomination of Thurgood Marshall. In a press conference that's dominated headlines across the country today, President Lyndon B. Johnson has announced Thurgood Marshall, currently a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, will be nominated to a newly vacated seat on the Supreme Court. Marshall, a graduate of Harvard Law School and experienced civil rights litigator, would be the first African-American to serve in the highest court in the land. His appointment would surely mark a turning point in American history. However, some in Congress are not willing to see such a turning point in the first place. Many senators come from the South are directly reliant on white voter blocs who aren't well disposed towards putting a black man on the Supreme Court. Several members of the Senate have already put out statements expressing their firm opposition. Though no one has come out and said it'd be due to Marshall's race, instead releases mention dangers of liberal judicial activism and other phrases. Clearly, the appointment of Thurgood Marshall will be a political fight for the ages. Well, if I had political power, I might use it here. It looks like 38. Yeah, all of the Social Democrats are in. I can't talk with any of them because I don't have the political power. 2 of the far right would support it? What the fuck? 15 of 17 would vote for us. That's enough votes, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Polls are updated. Sit down with teachers' unions. Public teacher unions, notably the American Federation of Teachers, wield a tremendous amount of influence over the education system, most of which is executed through campaigning and lobbying. Since they will be the ones educating children in the revitalized education system, winning their support, especially for ambitious legislation, will be critical to the implementation of many programs. Hopefully codify an alliance, members of the Department of Health and Human Services will meet with union leaders across the country to gain their support, meaning some promises will need to be made. Hey, the Senate elections are in. They were in a month ago. Really wish more Democrats hadn't gotten the votes, but, I'll take it. MPP getting votes? I'm about that. Material provisions. Final stages surrounding the ESEA have begun. How much money should be committed to the program? Growing coalition of conservatives who find themselves increasingly opposed to the president's education policies have requested a more watered... All right, basically, we can see where this is going, right? I can say government is best, which is closest to the people. We can't afford to agitate conservatives. We agitate the conservatives because that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing on every fucking decision. A day for tears. It's with a heavy heart that I announce as of 9:35 a.m., Walt Disney has died of lung cancer. St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, California. He was 65 years old, survived by his wife Lillian, his 2 daughters Sharon and Diane, and a multi-million-dollar empire of hope and joy. Never before has a man ingrained himself so into the works of America's long memory than that of Disney. Though the characters he created, Mickey Mouse, Peter Pan, Cinderella, have touched the hearts of millions all over the world, of all walks and ages, through the films he produced, they are now over 80 and counting. He has introduced America and beyond to limitless wonders of fantasy and magic, made us believe a few short hours that these worlds were real. Through the parks he designed, he's blessed us with glimpses of a future where all men can see their dreams fulfilled, their inner child let loose without care. The world was made brighter with his birth, and now made dimmer with his passing. CBS will hold a moment of silence to pay homage, followed shortly by a montage of Walt Disney's finest works in an orchestral arrangement of the popular Mickey Mouse Club March. May his legacy bring happiness for generations to come. May the man himself rest in peace, knowing that he made many, many dreams come true. Want to play a game about the US military destroying flora and fauna of the Rockies during World War II, made by the same studio that made most of the Slender games? It sounds weird. What's the name of this game? It's it's a hell of a concept. Justice Thurgood Marshall is confirmed. A man once declared that you do what you think is right, and you let the law catch up. Will now sit on the most important judicial institution of the United States. In a decisive vote of the Senate today, Thurgood Marshall was confirmed as the newest Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Justice Marshall will be the first African American to serve on the court, and his confirmation is undoubtedly a victory for the civil rights movement, which he himself has worked tirelessly to advocate. Oh, advance. Well, potato, potato. During his confirmation hearing, a number of conservative senators rallied against judicial activism, made a variety of statements that many commenters have called little better than dog whistles. Some have even asked whether or not Marshall had ties to American Bolsheviks. This strategy failed, however. At a press conference today, Justice Marshall stated his gratitude to the Senate and to the people of America before posturing for pictures with his two sons and his wife, the civil rights activist Cecilia Suyat Marshall. This is a truly historic moment for the nation, representing a triumph for justice of institutional racism. Valley by Blue Isle Studios. Valley, Blue Isle. Oh, the Valley. Yeah, okay. God, I vaguely recollect seeing this. First-person action-adventure single-player game. Futuristic, secluded setting in the Rocky Mountains. The leap effortlessly through air functionality suit, a remnant of some experiments during World War II. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. I'll look up more about that later. I had never heard of that. Maybe I had, but forgot about it. It like vaguely rings a bell, but only vaguely. Budgetary concerns. Rain fell down in the great sheets over Washington. Lyndon, I cannot in good conscience allow this bill. President Johnson's hands were in his pockets, his gaze out on the south lawn. Peal of thunder in the distance briefly overwhelmed the soft patter of rain on the windows of the Oval Office. Senator Russell was here, again, voicing his concerns over the administration's agenda. With all respect, Lyndon, you gotta take respect to the wishes of the constituents throughout the South, not just mine in Georgia. A great number of people do not think dumping millions in this program will do much for the welfare of these Negro children. Johnson suddenly drew himself up, his eyes alight. He snapped on his heels and briskly walked up to Russell, planting himself right in front of him. Noses were an inch apart. Buttons on their jackets were touching. Ooh la la. His voice boomed. Senator, I don't give a rat's ass about the damn constituents. I've not met with every member of Congress, held meetings with 20 teachers' unions across the country, crafted this bill to perfection, just to be told no by a few bigots voting for a party which I owe no allegiance. Russell froze, his lips tight, his eyes staring into the president's. A moment of silence. Calmly, Johnson continued. Senator, I would ask you kindly to relay your colleagues that my position on this is final. That is all. Okay, Lyndon, as you wish. Johnson turned back around, walking past the resolute desk, again staring out the drain wrench window. And you will address me as Mr. President. Get him. Get him, Johnson. Get him. Only a week left of this year. Am I gonna do another one after this? I mean, I'm having fun. I probably will. My neck is a little stiff. I could use me one of them massages, but I think I will. Oh, I think I will. But it's still, it's 8 in the morning. Yeah, alright, well, that's it. Got a lot accomplished in our nation. There's the Far Eastern Soviet Socialist Republic. I haven't been paying too much attention to what's been going on over here, but there's a lot. Romania is at war with the Republic of Ukraine? Is at war with, like, everyone? Ah. Bad times. How's your stability doing? Still terrible? Can't let go of you? Fair enough. Wouldn't want to anyway. Free Indonesia. Can I invite you to our faction? No. Shame. India? Nah. Pakistan still hasn't gone to war. That's good. Oh my god, the National Protection Army has split China in twain. I think these ultra-nationalists are gonna beat the fascists. Yikes. Yeah, the Unity Pact is doing alright. The Italian Empire doesn't even have a sphere anymore. But, you know, it's our faction that's been growing the most here, unsurprisingly. Coast Prosperity Sphere has just given up on China entirely. And on Vietnam now. Wow. Okay. And they lost Indonesia as well. Sweet. Well, we'll see what the next year holds, but until then, I'm gonna say toodaloo, take care, I will see you tomorrow. Waiting for this to save, there we go. Till then, bye-bye!